Welcome back. Today is a quick glimpse as to what I call low-waste modular cuisine or low-waste modular cooking. We have one base, bechamel, that I turned into Mornay sauce, split it three ways: mac and cheese, broccoli soup, and of course, nachos. And let me know your thoughts. Is this something that benefits you? All right, for the last trick, one thing I rarely use in my kitchen is butter. And guess what? Today I'm using butter, believe it or not. Why? We're making some fancy sauces. Bechamel, a Mornay, which many of you know as cheese sauce, the basis of a sauce for many endless opportunities, I say. So bechamel, it says flour, butter, milk. Mornay, add cheese, and you got nacho cheese. So with Mornay, so what are we making? Let's see, endless possibilities right now. But few ingredients to make a couple dishes. So we have 1 liter of milk, 55 grams of butter, 55 grams of sifted flour. This is 300 grams of queso. This is 150 grams of broccoli. And then we have 235 grams of the brahmi pasta. Remember that frijoles? So we're making something unique. Bean mac and cheese. Sounds right? No? I mean, you have bean and cheese burritos, so we know that bean and cheese dip go well. So beans with cheese sauce. So mac and cheese, pero con frijoles. And at the same time, one of the favorite cruciferous vegetables of mine, broccoli. I know you love broccoli. Me. We're gonna make broccoli and cheese soup. And can't forget, most of all, simple jalapenos, pickled jalapenos, make the cheesiest sauce for nachos. Okay, so first things first is to make this go quick. I'm gonna cut up the broccoli, blanch it with the salted water. So essentially it's part way cooked, gets rid of the fibrous stalk. Now you can make this smaller if you want. I like to see my broccoli. The smaller you make it, it'll break. Can you use the stem or stalk? Yes. However, you should cook that separate. Boil it, get it really soft and tender, then blend it. Otherwise, you're gonna have this like fibrous crunchiness that most people don't enjoy. So we'll keep this to blanch. We're going to heat this really fast in just some water, which I have already going here. And then we're gonna get started on our bechamel. So one thing that's fairly illegal in my kitchen, butter, but some dishes require it. So to make bechamel, you need to make a roux, which is flour and butter. And that is your binder. The trick with roux, or more like the law, is it's equal parts butter and flour by weight. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So here I have 55 grams of butter, 55 grams of sifted flour. And this is going for 1,000 grams or 1 liter of milk. So the thing is with bechamel, it's one of those sauces that is sensitive, temperamental, meaning you need to cook it with patience, care, because what you want to do is melt your butter. And so cutting your butter small is a lot easier. But then this is where I always forget, but one of those things called a spatula comes in handy. So you want to melt your butter. Keep it on the lower side. And as soon as it melts, add the flour in waves. Don't just toss it all in there, because then it'll get lumpy. So what you're doing is combining the melted butter with the flour, and then you're cooking out the raw flour. So if you don't cook it enough, it's just going to taste like flour with butter raw. However, if you cook it too much, start to get your brown roux, and the more you cook it, you reduce the thickening power. So to get the most effect of thickening your sauce, you want it to stay white, blonde, blanc. All right, so there's our butter. So now add in the flour, and you see now it's starting to become like a little paste. Now it becomes like this Play-Doh, like clay Play-Doh. So one of the things with bechamel sauce is when you add cold to this base, it's going to clump up. So one thing is, if you're going to add it cold, add it really slow so it tempers, but at the same time, so it's heating up and it breaks it apart, and you're cooking your roux again, cooking it all the way through. Don't add it all the milks here because you want to cook the flour. And if you add everything in, make it all lumpy, you don't know if you're going to be able to break it all apart. Looks like mashed potatoes. A whisk is the way to go here. You can do it with the spatula. I think the whisk allows you to get air. And if you notice, it's getting creamier. And I haven't touched the heat. You start to see that it's getting really creamy. So this is that opportunity to get all the lumps out, where you don't want it to get grainy, because if you go too high, you're going to scorch the milk, burn it, and then your sauce will break also. This is where good whisk, because you can still keep going. It's not sticking to the bottom, and you're still mixing the sauce. So I like to take my time. What you'll notice is that this will get thicker as the roux starts to bind with the milk. And for this one, fat is your friend. If you want real creamy, structured sauces, whole milk, whole butter is how it's gonna stick together. Now, if you don't drink milk or animal milk, you can try vegetable protein. It is a little bit tougher, and hence why you'll see some stabilizers start using additional additive. So from here, you let it cook off. Check the seasoning, add salt, nuez moscada, so nutmeg. If you're trying to make like croquetas, this is the base of it. Essentially, it's milk, flour, and water. Fancy sauce. Now from here, we'll make mornay, known as cheese sauce. So notice how it's starting to steam. It's getting hotter. You don't want it to boil though. And as it gets hotter, it should thicken up, and you'll have this thick mashed potato looking like sauce. Once that's done, then we'll whisk in the cheese. And so this is where I think a lot of missteps happen. So once it's thick, I don't add salt because salt comes in cheese. So I'd rather melt the cheese, see where it's at, and then salt it. Remember, you can always add, but taking something out is not always possible. So you might be able to see that it's starting to get thicker. And the reason I keep whisking it is because I don't want it to stick at the bottom, then scorch, and then you're done, and you have to start all over. So my thing is, why if you see that it's not coming together, you got a problem. One, you may have had too much milk, not enough roux, so not enough fat, which is, to me, why I'd rather go heavy on the flour and the butter. So if it gets extra thick, I can add stuff to thin it out. More milk, water, stock. But if you don't have enough fat to bind it, you're just going to end up with this watery mess. Once you add the cheese, you cannot boil it, or you're going to curdle your cheese, break it, and get grainy. So how do you fix that? You can try. One, if it's watery, strain it out. That's one way to do it. It's not the most efficient way. Sometimes you can get an immersion blender. Try to blend it together, reduce it. You could try adding more cheese. If it's light on the cheese, you're not gonna eliminate it completely, but you'll reduce some of that grit. Now you see here, it's coming up, and that's partly because it's getting ready to boil. So I'm turning down the heat. So now our sauce is thicker. Can it get more thick? Yes. But if I'm gonna add cheese to it, it's also still gonna get fattier. So from here, drop it to the lowest temperature possible, and then start adding cheese. The more shredded, the easier it is for it to melt. But if you're cutting it from like a big block and small cubes, you want to go slower. You start to see now it's getting thicker, and I have it at the lowest setting possible. If you're on like a radiant stove, something like that, take it off the heat. Just let the natural heat melt it. Now as you let it set here, it's actually going to get even thicker. Keep in mind that all this fat, once it gets cooler, it'll harden up again. Actually needs more cheese. Add more cheese. Now the other part is I'm using this mix because that's what I got. If you're using more of a sharper, stronger cheese, you might be good with your 300. In my case, we're not. So I'm adding another 100 grams. So this will make 400 grams of queso. And again, I'm not boiling it. And when you add it, you start to feel the thing getting heavier. So now I gotta whisk harder. I'm actually gonna shut off the heat now, especially since I have cast iron. It's gonna stay pretty hot. So if you're holding it at the very low setting or one of those warm zones, just very, very low, you don't want it to boil, because if it boils, then you're curdled. You want your sauce to hold. It's cheesy. So now I can see that it needs a little bit of salt. Here, I have 5 grams of salt. I'm going to start with that. You know, if you really want that cheesiness, sharp cheddar, I'm not going to add more salt. And you just leave it really low. There you go. Now let's finish off our mac and cheese. So we have our brahmi pasta, if you remember. Frijoles. So a couple seconds in there. And this was pasta that I also left al dente. Shut off the heat. Drain it. Throw it back in. Add some of the sauce to this, which 450 grams cheesiness. So why did it get softer? Remember, the pasta one is hot. It also has a little bit of water still. So now you have your cheesy mac. That's pretty damn good. For frijoles con queso. So our mac and cheese is done. So here it is, the cheesiest. Now as this gets colder, it's gonna bind, get thicker. So that becomes 600 at the cheesiest. And there's your mac and cheese. If you have bacon, throw some bacon. I don't know, whatever, some Parmesan cheese, whatever you want on top of that. And there you go. So there's the cheesiest. That pasta is ridiculously fine. I don't think you'd be able to tell the difference of putting this pasta de frijoles instead of white pasta. Now, I don't know the nutritional thing on here, but it is over at least 2 portions of the pasta. So you got like 20 something grams of plant-based protein, plus the milk, plus the cheese. So you got a hearty protein-based meal right here. All right, next please. All right, so I turn back on the heat to low so it doesn't get all crusty and hard. Next up, broccoli and cheese soup. Now, here's the simple version, sustainable and efficient. What we're gonna do is blanch this with a little bit of salt. Well, that heats up jalapenos. So remember, these are forks in the road. Now that this is ready, or boiling, add our broccoli for a minute, right? You want it to stay green, but you also want it to be cooked. Now, if you're not gonna use it right away, throw it in some ice water. And notice it's still, so we did 4 ladles like the last time, 500 grams again of the sauce. Now it's gotten softer again. So I'm sure I'm gonna get some grief for some people. You're gonna be like, well, where's the onion? Where's all of that? Great question. This is the efficient way to do it. If you wanted to, yes. Remember, we took down the stock, or boil those, sweat off some onion, garlic, add the stock with the stalks, and puree it. Reduce it, and that's where you add here, and add your cheese sauce. So you're gonna get a more in-depth soup to make it cheesy. You don't wanna boil it. All right, let's see. And here, it's a little watery, so we got our soup. That's 395 for this one. There you go. There's your soup. All right, for the last one, real quick. Nachos, pickled jalapeno, a little bit of the vinegar. And you do nacho sauce. You do want to have a little bit of acid. And at this point, if it's too thick, that's good. You can always thin it out. There we go. And now leave it on low and then just taste it. That last minute of sazon. It's good. I don't have any chips. Do a piece of stale bread. Could have made a crouton for my soup, or breadcrumbs for the mac and cheese con frijoles. It was good. There it is, 3 simple ways. It all started with butter, flour, milk. So hopefully that gives you guys some ideas. You know, if you guys try this out. And yeah, give that a brahmi pasta a shot. If your kids like mac and cheese and trying to get them to have more protein in their diet, there's a way to go. Thanks for following along. Like, share, and subscribe. And let me know in the comments what other things could be good. Take care. To make bechamel sauce, butter, 55 grams. Okay, so now we need 55 grams of sifted. Now, why do you sift it? See, these are the little things you don't want. So far. All right, there we go. 55 grams of flour. How much cheese? 300 grams of this fancy Mexicano blend cheese. That is 300 grams. Pasta noodles. We're doing the brahmi. 235 grams of cooked brahmi noodles. Go ahead and get water ready to blanch. And add half a gram of salt. Season the water this time. So I got that going. What else do I need? Broccoli and 50 grams of broccoli florets. So they're the pre-cut florets, and that I'm going to break up into smaller pieces. We need a liter of milk. So we're going to use whole milk. Now this is where fat is your friend. $9.99. Close enough. And so now we got a liter of milk. Let's go with the cheesiest.